the guard and the handle itself. Now this has been abandoned later. Our sabers of the kind that I have shown on the picture in the uniform of General Pulaski using American saber, the kablong or the guard was connected firmly to the grip. However, in the Polish original sabers of 17th, 18th century, the guard would be brought close to the grip but not connect. The gap that was left, that was possibly 1/8 of an inch or 1/16, was important because its function was to provide a deflection space for the guard. So the guard impacted by a saber of another man or whatever weapon would absorb energy of the blow in deflection. And this in itself was a very important feature of it, because that meant that less of the blow was transferred to the hand of the man for him to feel the impact of it. So we had the hussar saber, which were much heavier than the sabers that the Turks used in general, and larger, and an example of one of the sabers of the hussar type is the model I have here. We see it has also the feather in the back with a sharp edge on the back of the saber, besides of course the long sharp edge of the front of it. And so the blade of the saber is known in Polish as brzeszczot or głownia. Those two words were used to identify the blade. Of course, there is also a Polish word borrowed from German, which is klinga, in German klinge, but this is not as often used as the basic Polish word brzeszczot, or, as I said, the głownia. So in order to compare the actual looks of the sabers, we are going to look at the evolution of the saber on the display of sabers themselves. So I have in front of me the whole range of the evolution of the saber, which starts with the oriental grip, which has the crossbar, which was to protect the hand of the cavalryman, and interestingly enough, Polish carabela, or the side weapon of Polish noblemen who were the great mass of Polish nobility that represented in some areas up to 20% of the population. In this sense, Polish nobility, of course, was much more like the Scottish clans than like the nobility of the feudal classical form of France or England. And so the sidearm of Polish citizen soldier was a carabela, which I am touching the handle at this time. We see that it carries the same shape of a bar that protects the hand as it was in Oriental saber, and we see here a shape of the head of the eagle at the top of the handle. And this is very typical for Poland, because the white eagle is the Polish symbol, state emblem, and so the sabers of Polish citizen soldiers had the shape of the head of an eagle at the top, and that was functional because that was providing a clear-cut stop from below. On the hand, if you raise the saber, you had a stop so that the saber could not easily slide out of the hand, because there was this stop at this point. Now, the Polish sabers typically had the shape of an eagle. Now, when the British borrowed Polish saber design from Poland, they started placing a head of a lion there, because that was their emblem. So we see here the evolution of the handle and the appearance of the head of the eagle, which of course the Oriental sabers didn't have. Now the next saber, which we have in our development of saber, is the hussar saber of the Polish winged hussars. Now this saber was balanced very well for the action from the horse, and in it we see the beginning of the guard, which the crossbar was equipped with an extension parallel to the hand itself, and it served to protect the hand of the cavalryman from the blows directed into the hand. So at this point we see a large gap between the guard and the handle, and as the Poles started developing better steel and better protectors for the hand, they brought within 1/8 of an inch this guard, kabłąk in Polish, and so this little gap that remained was the shock absorption gap, which was providing the room for deflection of the guard, which was to protect the hand. So we see the evolution of the sabers on the screen, and our next saber is the saber that we have seen in use on the horse in the beginning of our program, and here we see in American version the gap being abandoned and the connection, solid connection being made between the handle and the guard itself. So the guard in American saber has the typical shape for what was developed in Poland, but it does not have anymore the shock absorption gap at the top here at this point, which we have discussed while talking about the engineering of the design of the saber. Short lecture on the sabers have given us a chance to see that the modern saber in Europe and America is the development of the saber in Poland in 17th and even 16th century. And saber was the most important weapon of Polish cavalry during the 300 years in which especially the Polish winged hussars were the most important cavalry formation on the European continent, most effective. And what is interesting to notice is that it did actually outlast as a formation. The formation of Polish winged hussars had outlasted the famous Roman legions in being a decisive weapon for several centuries on the European scene. Well, thank you for your attention, and I hope to have you again on our next lecture on Poland, a history of 1,000 years.